I'm Tom Ryan. This Crime Solvers reenactment deals with a potentially deadly crime of armed robbery. February 1st, the video pursuit store on Morse Road had just closed. Manager Reagan Cole and a clerk chatted as he removed the day's receipts from the cash drawer. That money was on the minds of two black teenagers lurking in the shadows outside. Now, by the way, all these people are actors. Cole placed the money in an envelope and tucked it inside of his jacket, and the two headed for the door, never realizing that in minutes he would lie mortally wounded. He flipped off the lights, locked the door, and then stepped out into the night air. Then as he turned to walk toward his pickup truck, the two armed men stepped from behind a pillar. One carried a gun and demanded money. The victim backed away and then noticed that the gun was a starter pistol. The accomplice then came up from behind carrying a large survivor-type hunting knife. Cole felt the stinging pain as the blade struck him in the back. The attacker then lunged over Cole's shoulder and plunged that knife deep into his chest. As he collapsed, Cole threw the envelope of money. The two robbers scrambled to retrieve the loot and fled from the scene. One was about 16, 5'2" and 110 pounds. The other 5'9", 160 pounds, about 18 years old.
I bet you thought you were going to die.
Yeah, at one point I was probably pretty close. The people that did this to me, they're definitely killers.
Would you recognize these people if you saw them again?
Yeah, I'd recognize them both.
Back with that hotline number in a moment. Call us on the Crime Solvers hotline, 222-TIPS. We don't need your name, and if we catch these guys, you get $1,000 cash. I'm Tom Ryan. People are invading our homes, but with your help, Crime Solvers can stop them. Crime Solvers is focusing on a rash of burglaries that have hit the near North Side and Victorian Village area very hard. In fact, since April 1st, 20 homes have been entered and ransacked. The thieves are getting in by prying open windows and forcing doors. Now, many of these break-ins are happening during the daylight hours, so these guys are pretty bold. The pattern is generally about the same, scouring the house for loot that can be quickly turned into cash. Television sets, VCRs, and stereos are among the items most frequently taken, but actually anything of value that can be easily carried disappears as well. Jewelry and cash make up a significant part of the loss list. It's believed those burglars are a couple of black teenagers, or perhaps men in their early 20s. One, spotted by a witness, was described as tall and thin. One resident who returned home unexpectedly was confronted by a burglar as she started to enter her house. The thieves are believed to be driving a small red Chevrolet Chevette.
The main target seems to be electronic items, especially VCRs. That seems to be the hot item right now, but they will take jewelry and cash. They'll take some clothing, personal items, purse, credit cards if they can find them.
Check the locks on those doors and windows and be on the lookout for that red Chevette in your neighborhood. And if you have any information, call Crime Solvers at 222-TIPS. Don't give us your name. We might give you $1,000. I'm Tom Ryan. Crime Solvers needs your help in solving an unprovoked murder. Mickey's Market, October 13th, almost 8 o'clock. Two men entered the store and loitered around. No one paid much attention to them, but they were plotting a crime. Owner Earl Simpson was busy filling an order. His son Timothy, in an enclosed area, was tabulating receipts from the state lottery sales. He placed the cash into a bank bag, then he walked to the counter and handed the money to his dad. Tim was preoccupied and didn't really notice anything out of the ordinary, and then the man leaning against the counter slid a gun from his pocket and concealed it behind a couple of rolls of tissue. Tim knew it was a holdup, and he made no menacing gestures. Even as the robber came behind the counter, Simpson was already shoving cash toward him. Then, with no provocation, the robber fired the weapon, and Tim Simpson fell to the floor critically wounded. His assailant cleaned out the cash drawer and shouted commands at the others in the store, forcing them to lie on the floor. A noisy overhead fan muffled the gunshot, and nobody was aware that Tim was wounded. The robbers backed to the door and fled to a waiting car. An upstairs resident described the getaway vehicle as light tan or cream-colored. Ironically, the lottery cash was overlooked, but Tim Simpson died in minutes, an artery in his lower chest severed.
Anybody had any information that will lead to the arrest of these men that perpetrated this, stop them from doing it to somebody else.
The killers are described only as being in their 30s or 40s. Try to remember. We'll be back. Call the Crime Solvers hotline. Don't give us your name, just information, and if we catch these killers, you get $1,000. I'm Tom Ryan. Who shoots down a youngster right in the street for no reason? Maybe you can help Crime Solvers find out. The bizarre crime happened last October on the city's Far East Side. A group of boys went to the recreation center to shoot a few baskets. It was just good fun. Some horseplay, but no arguments, no altercations. They left shortly after 8 p.m. 15-year-old Brian Lowry and his friend headed north on Latimer Drive toward their homes. As they walked along the street, they noticed a noisy vehicle that seemed to be trailing along behind them. As they looked back, they spotted a red pickup truck described as loud and raggedy. As it passed by, they crossed over to the opposite side of the street. At the corner of Latimer and Dundee, Brian bid his buddy goodbye, exchanged a friendly gesture, and they parted. And that's when Brian noticed that same pickup truck slide up to the corner and stop. Brian's friend heard loud voices and looked back. Brian was standing next to the truck on the passenger side. It sounded like words were exchanged. Then suddenly a gun was thrust toward Brian's face. There was a flash, and the truck sped away. The friend heard the shot and sensed what had happened. He rushed to Brian's side. Blood was gushing from a gaping bullet wound in his forehead.
We know of no motive for the shooting. We have very little to go on. We know that there were possibly 2 individuals in the truck, perhaps 3. We're not really sure. We don't know what race they were.
Think about that truck. Tell you how you can help us when we come back. If you know anything about that red pickup truck, call the hotline. Give us no name, and if we find the people who shot Brian, you get $1,000 cash. This is Tom Ryan. Share the frightening experience of looking down the barrel of a gun pointing directly at you. It's this week's Crime Solvers report. It was April 27th, just after 10 a.m., the Radio Shack on North High Street north of Lane. 2 men came to the door and knocked. The clerk opened the store early to accommodate them, a big mistake as it turns out. The 2 customers wandered around, but their browsing caused some suspicion by the clerk. He asked if there was anything specific he might show them, but they replied no and acted disinterested. One man then approached the counter, the other lagged behind. The clerk pointed out some specials. Then as he turned back toward the counter, the man produced a blue steel revolver and demanded money. The clerk offered no resistance. He emptied out the cash drawer. As the robber backed toward the door, he summoned his friend. Now, the second man demanded the clerk's billfold, but when he saw there was no money in it, he tossed it aside and both fled. A third man, presumably a lookout, was waiting outside. Unknown to the robbers, the store's surveillance equipment captured photos of both men inside. Look carefully at these pictures. These are the actual suspects. This is the gunman, he and his accomplice, believed to be teenagers, about 5'7", 150, 160 pounds. The man with the weapon wore a blue jean jacket. The accomplice wore a silver jacket but had a distinctive brown leather ball cap on. Now look carefully at both. If you recognize them, you could be $1,000 richer. Think about it. We'll be right back. If you recognize these teenage criminals, call the hotline now. We don't need your name. Nobody will ever know who tipped us, and there's a $1,000 reward. We pay for information on any felony crime. I'm Tom Ryan. Imagine thieves ransacking your home, taking your valuable possessions and vanishing. It's happening on the far northeast side. Crime Solvers this week is focusing on a rash of burglaries that have plagued the city since the 1st of May. More than 40 homes broken into in an area bounded by Agler Road on the north, Mock to the south, and extending from Cleveland Avenue to Alum Creek Drive. The astonishing thing, nobody has spotted the thieves nor any vehicle they're using. We don't know age, race, or sex. These are daring daylight breakings and enterings. The thieves case the victims' homes, probably knock and ring the doorbell, likely look into the windows, and then use a pry bar to force open the front door, or in some cases smash through windows, all in plain sight. Inside, they move from room to room, grabbing things easily sold on the street. The ever-popular TV sets, VCRs, and other electronic equipment, microwave ovens, jewelry of all kinds, valuable or costume, and cash whenever it's left lying around. Nothing is sacred. Irreplaceable things stolen. Victims feel violated, never again feeling safe or comfortable in their homes. But how can 40 burglaries happen and nobody sees anything to report to police?
We're getting into the warmer months. We're into a lot of vacation. School is out. People's minds are on a lot of different things besides crime, and these people are just not watching out in their neighborhoods. We know that in the course of 40 burglaries, somebody has seen something.
If you're approached by someone selling hot merchandise or you see something suspicious in the neighborhood, call Crime Solvers, but don't reveal your name. We'll put the thieves out of business and reward you with $1,000. As you know, we pay rewards for tips on any felony crime. Our Crime Solvers report this week deals with an assault that's one of the most brutal and bizarre ever investigated by Columbus police. Tuesday, May 24th, the north side. The victim of this savage attack had just put her 2 youngsters to bed and went to the basement to do her laundry. A Summit Street housewife who never even considered she might be victimized in her own home. A stranger entered through the front door. He wore gloves, careful not to leave any telltale fingerprints. Sounds from the basement told him where his victim was. The burly, bearded attacker grabbed the unsuspecting woman from behind and held a knife to her throat. Pulling her by the hair, he forced her to the floor. A chain wrapped tightly around her neck. Her hands then tied behind her head with that same chain. A gag was placed in her mouth. The rapist tore at the woman's clothes. Her garments were stripped away. The buttons were actually cut from her blouse. The attack was so shocking, we're not permitted to describe it or the instrument used. Her attacker then dragged her to the steps, leaving her naked body shielded only by a blanket. She passed out from the pain. He fled, no motive, nothing taken, but an act of sheer savagery.
It was a violent rape. It was very perverted, and it was an isolated incident for this area.
Look at this face. We'll be back. This sketch of the rapist is a very good likeness. Mid-30s, pot-bellied, shaggy brown hair, brown eyes, pockmarks around his nose, puffy cheeks, smelled of gas and oil, about 5'10". This man is an animal and must be caught before he strikes again. If you even think you recognize him, please call the hotline. You may save a life. Don't reveal your name. We'll pay you $1,000. I'm Tom Ryan. Imagine your 9-year-old child missing for 3 months, not knowing if she's dead or alive. That's this week's Crime Solvers case. Little Nidra Ross from Dayton was visiting relatives at 950 East 17th Avenue near the State Fairgrounds when she vanished March 31st. It was a Thursday. Schools closed for the Easter holiday. A family friend, David Penton, states he took Nidra and 2 cousins to a fast food restaurant for breakfast, then later sat with them at the rear of the 17th Avenue home as they played. Penton claims he left in his van, and Nidra walked to the front of the home and was playing with a stick. Now remember, these people are actors. Penton further said that as he circled back past the home, the child was standing near the porch. That was about 1 o'clock. She was reported missing later that afternoon. There's been no trace of the youngster since. Her mother is begging for your help.
If you seen anything or think you might have seen something, just call and let us know. You know, that my nights and days are terrible. I'm up here every week.
The aunt is desperate for any word.
The house has even given us nightmares. Any sound, you always feeling that maybe she's knocking at the door.
Nidra had her hair dyed red with a blonde tail when last seen. She wore a Mickey Mouse sweater, jeans, and black tennis shoes. This is the van that Penton drove the day the child vanished. It is tan with a distinctive brown border. Think about it, and think about the child. If you have any clue about Nidra's disappearance, call the hotline. We'll not ask your name. The reward, $1,000. A grieving mother needs your help.